Does it smell bad? Kind of vaguely smells of poo. Meow! Hey everybody, Opal's cat. That was me in March 2020. I started taking this then to stop myself getting SARS-2 or to blunt the effects of getting SARS-2. Since then, Kitty and myself have taken 600 milligrams or 1200 milligrams every day. But not every day. It's been large periods of time where we haven't taken any. Correlation isn't causation. But the fact remains, in our case study of 2, neither of us have had C19. Well, we may have had it in January, February of 2020, but that's unproven. We definitely haven't had it since. It's not just this, it's hand washing, proper masking, social distancing, and taking care to follow basic, sane infection prevention and control measures. So in our case study of 2, this has worked, or this hasn't done anything, we've just been lucky. It's hard to tell. This is clinically proven to limit the effect of flu, influenza, which SARS-2, the coronavirus, is not. So I'm at the end of a 30-month course of this. It's time to evaluate it. Should I continue it? Should I not continue it?
This is happening because we're starting to see, I've got a mosquito here that's trying, you guys will probably see it sucking the blood out of my head, but haha, you're going to get some diseased blood because of whatever I've been fighting for the last couple of weeks. Maybe it'll just turn over and croak, but it's probably one of the new genetically modified mosquitoes, so it doesn't have to worry about that. I have to worry about what it'll give me.
As of November the 9th, 2023, 120 days of NAC is available in Canada for the price of $35.24 Canadian, or $25 American, or £20, or 24 euros, or even 2,335 rubles. So N-Acetyl cysteine, I'm just going to call it NAC because I can't deal with it, saying that every time. Basically, it's from an amino acid. It's not a vegan sauce. It's a vegetarian sauce. Egg and milk, I believe, but it also has some plant sauces. But you know what? I'm vegan, I'm taking it. I first came across NAC in February of 2020 when I was searching for stuff that could help me avoid catching SARS-2. It wasn't labelled COVID at that time as far as most people knew. At that time, as far as most people knew, it wasn't a threat. I could see it spreading in China as an airborne, and I was very, very concerned. I researched NAC and it's mostly safe and effective. So I'm continually surprised that nobody's really using this or talking about it, but they'll talk about things like horse dewormer, bleach and colloid silver, all 3 of which do absolutely nothing to help protect you from the COVID virus and in fact probably harm you. At least in the case of colloid silver, it's just your wallet you're flushing down your bowels. Correlation is not causation. What it's been commonly used for is a whole bunch of things. What we use for in healthcare is actually pretty much the only use we use for this is IV use for it, for Tylenol overdose, acetaminophen overdose. That's pretty much what we give. I've given it probably about 20-25 times in intensive care units as a nurse intravenously, and almost entirely for Tylenol overdose, acetaminophen overdose. You can take as little as 8 tablets of Tylenol and kill your liver. Tylenol is a very dangerous drug. So this is a prescribed medication that you can buy without a prescription. It's clinically used for a great many things. I'm not going to go into them all. You can read this, stop the video and look at it. Research and clinical trials have shown it to be safe for multiple uses. These include Tylenol poisoning, arterial excess, where the functional units of the lung collapse usually because of mucus, decreasing lung secretions before you go down a bronchoscopy to have a look to see what's going on, or if you have a tracheostomy, an artificial hole here, which may be permanent or temporary, that keeps getting sputum in it and blocking. So they're the clinically proven safe uses of NAC. So it directly binds with Tylenol and prevents liver death, which is pretty good. It is a known antioxidant. But I never knew this was an antioxidant. It definitively would be used in the ICU IV to stop you getting Tylenol poisoning. If you have Tylenol poisoning or think you have Tylenol poisoning, don't take oral NAC. Go to a doctor, go to a hospital, even in a pandemic. It's been seen to reduce orally shortness of breath and coughing due to mustard gas exposure. Now hopefully you won't get exposed to mustard gas, but you never know. It protects you from some of the effects of mustard gas. Is mustard gas even a threat? Now a real prepper would stop this just in case. However, in the real world, mustard gas is actually a terrorist weapon that's often used, especially on subways or in big buildings in cities. So it may be a good idea to get some NAC and carry a little bit of it in your pocket. If you can take 3 capsules as soon as you think you may have been exposed to mustard gas, it might help you. It won't hurt you, unless you have certain disease processes, which we'll get into. Scientific research suggests that NAC by mouth seems to reduce flu symptoms. So it's known to decrease influenza, both catching it and also the severity of it. So if you've got influenza, you might want to start taking NAC. If there's a lot of influenza going on where you live, you might want to start taking NAC. But I hope you've noticed I'm taking it for SARS-2, C19, whatever you want to call it. And that's very much not an influenza virus. So why am I still taking NAC? Well, it isn't for this reason. This may not be true, but it may make you more likely to breed if you're infertile. It can improve sperm concentrations. They don't know whether it's actually the movement and shape is improved or whether there's just more of them. Nor is it for this reason. But still, storing some NAC for SACF seems to me smart. So they felt that 8 weeks of this with talk therapy could reduce symptoms better than just the talk therapy and depression. However, they only used war veterans and war veterans who had substance abuse, so we don't know. They felt it also reduced the cravings to use the drugs or alcohol in these veterans. These are the main side effects of NAC. It can have very rarely serious side effects. The good thing is those side effects are really obvious and really easy to spot and are easily fixed by stop taking NAC. However, if you develop any serious symptoms of any medications, including NAC, you need to go to a doctor. Okay, so what are the side effects and how safe is this? So I have ignored inhalation and IV therapy. I really don't recommend that for home use at all. But oral use, let's have a look at this. So NAC is likely safe for most adults, which means it's as safe as anything else out there. It can cause nausea, vomiting and diarrhea or constipation. Now, just a word for you, any medication pretty much can cause those four. However, rarely it can cause rashes and fever, headache, drowsiness, low blood pressure and liver problems. Now, the raw form of this has an unpleasant odour that makes it hard to take. I had no problem taking mine. It seemed just fine to me in the capsules. Does it smell bad? Kind of vaguely smells of poo. Not really smelt it before. This is a 600 milligram capsule. There are various strengths out there. What you're looking for is 600 milligrams. That's about one of these per day is a daily preventative dose for influenza. Let's break it open and smell it. Smell too bad. Bitter, quite bitter. Being a frugal pepper, I'm actually going to reuse that. Anyway, it doesn't smell so bad I couldn't do that, and it doesn't taste so bad that I have to spit it out. There is some specific precautions and warnings that you need to be aware of. Do not take this if you're breastfeeding or pregnant. So if you're pregnant, under 18 and asthmatic, I feel very sorry for you. But if you're under 18, or if you're pregnant, or if you're asthmatic, don't take NAC unless it's prescribed by a doctor who knows what they're doing. Now, it might cause bronchospasm if you've got asthma, so if you have asthma, do not take this medication unless the doctor tells you to. I do not have asthma, so I absolutely do not recommend you start this if you have asthma. If you're taking regular or baby aspirin or any blood thinner, don't take NAC unless it's prescribed by the doctor and the doctor knows what they're doing. If you're taking NAC and you start to bleed, stop taking NAC. It might slow blood clotting, so if you know that you bleed easily, or if you're on a blood thinner, don't take this. Unlike most medications, there's only two absolutely don't use, and one of them is a bit So the first do not use is if you're on nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin tablets, capsules, spray, patches, however people take nitroglycerin. After years of dairy and meat eating, they have bad hearts and they have angina. So they have to take nitroglycerin to try and hold the pipes open in the heart, so they don't get pain. What NAC does when it's in the presence of nitroglycerin is it makes nitroglycerin incredibly more effective than it's supposed to be, which causes massive vasodilation, which can cause fainting, head injuries and actual death from low blood flow to the heart. Apparently it is rarely used in ICUs for people on nitroglycerin who are not responding to nitroglycerin, who have seriously high blood pressure problems. I've never seen it used for that, and I've worked in 2 major ICUs for over 30 years, but it was in Canada, and Canada doesn't have the greatest doctors. However, there's 2 major interactions that you need to be aware of. Do not take this if you are taking nitroglycerin. If you're going to plan to kill yourself and you're going to take oral poisons by mouth, don't take NAC, because it stops the activated charcoal from working well and you'll probably die. So what did I take in March of 2020? What I'm taking is 600 milligrams TID 3 times a day. Now I take 600 milligrams, 1 capsule each day, or I don't take it at all. For example, Kitty's away and she's looking after her dad and her mom. Her dad's still in hospital. Anyway, long story short, I'm here. I don't really have any social contact with anybody. I'm not shopping, I don't drive, I'm just here with the dog and the cat, enjoying myself in the forest. So I don't actually need to take it as a preventative. But if you're going to take it as a preventative, you want to take it about 4 or 5 days before you're exposed to the virus. You can do 48 hours. I tend to do 4 or 5 days. And then you want to take 2 tablets, 1 tablet twice a day, or 2 tablets at once if you're lazy like me. Depends on what the exposure is. Now, does it work for C19? Unknown. As far as I know, nobody's doing clinical research into it. I don't know why not. So unless I develop side effects, and or there's no flu going around, and or C19 goes away, I will continue to take NAC. Unless I develop side effects, and so far I have not. Now, both myself and especially Kitty have been inside her parents' long-term residence with C19 outbreaks going on, and also with influenza outbreaks going on. And trust me, the old folks and her parents are absolutely diabolically useless at infection prevention and control. Kitty generally wears a surgical mask, but sometimes I can get her in an N95. I wear an N95. We wash your hands, we're quite careful, etc., etc. That and the NAC, and maybe blind luck, have prevented us from getting flu, a cold, or C19 at all since early March of 2020. Correlation is not causation. I'm not saying that's because this fixed it for me. What I am saying is that NAC is probably something you should have 1 or 2 bottles of in a pandemic box, ready to go if there's an influenza outbreak. It's also something you might want to consider using in the late fall, early winter during SHTF when you're run down, if you're in contact with other human beings. Will it work for bird flu? Will it work for Ebola? Absolutely not. It causes bleeding, right? So Ebola, hemorrhage, don't take anything that's going to make you bleed. So to reduce influenza, they're actually 600 milligrams BID, which is twice a day, for up to 30 months. I think what they're basically saying is don't take it for more than 30 months. But C19 is not influenza. It's also used for end-stage renal disease, so people who have had strokes and heart attacks may have already been prescribed this medication. If you have, you might find it cheaper to buy it. Now I have a mystery. Do I stay or do I go? I don't know, I can't sing. So I've had about a 30-month course of this, which is about the course they prescribe for people who have problems and need to protect themselves from influenza. Now, it's also used long-term for end-stage renal disease. That's where your kidneys have packed in and you're on dialysis. Most of those patients probably don't live 30 months. Some of them might. Again, I can't find any evidence of long-term life use of NAC if the conditions warrant it, and they still do in November of 2023. There's still C19 around and it's bubbling up again. There's RSV bubbling up, and there's also influenza in the background. Is it better to get influenza and just get herd immunity or die? No, not really, I don't want to die. But we won't go into that one again. There's very little information on children, and I do not recommend you give this to your kids at all. And the use for autism, pretty much it doesn't seem to work, though some people do use it. But it needs to be with risperidone, and it needs to be under a medical supervision. In children, anybody under the age of 18, I recommend you don't give them NAC. If you want to give it to a kid, you really want to talk to a pediatrician who understands pharmacology in detail. You don't want to be figuring this stuff out from the internet. I'm certainly not a pediatrician. I'm certainly not a pharmacist. I'm a retired ICU nurse, that's it. Now, some of you may have heard about this being useful for autism. Amongst us lefty, vegan, woke people, it's fashionable to develop late adult onset autism, so maybe NAC's helping me. In all seriousness, just the same as there's zero causation between vaccination of children and autism, there's zero causation between NAC and reduction of autism in children. Simply, it doesn't work. So why on earth did I start taking this in March of 2020? The reason I'm taking it is because for lung disease it leaves a scarring and thickening of the lung. That's why I'm taking it. I'm trying to prevent myself from catching COVID-19, which NAC might do. Now, I haven't had C19, but Kitty will tell you that I am C19 hyper. That means I always wear an N95 in an elevator in a nursing home and a hospital. It means that I keep the N95 on me for the 12 hours. At one point I stayed with her dad in the emerge, didn't take it off. And I wash my hands with a decent alcohol rinse on a regular basis. And yes, I have a lot of alcohol rinses, and I do still, in November of 2023, carry some in the car. Kitty doesn't take NAC very often, but she will when I'm prompted to do so. But recently she's been more focused on it because of the number of C19 outbreaks we're experiencing in Canada. Her mother had it 2 months ago. Kitty and myself had to go there and look after her. We didn't wear spacesuits. We were just sensible. Kept our distancing, we were a little cautious, we made sure we had masks on outside of the apartment, we made sure we washed our hands, we made sure we never touched our face unless we washed our hands. We did basic stuff, and we did take NAC. We didn't catch it. I could say it's because we're vaccinated, but our vaccination status is about a year out of date at this point, and there's at least 2 new strains, so I don't think it's that. We also shop when the shops aren't crowded, and we also do some fairly straightforward, sensible things, which people should still be doing, because the pandemic is still active. Now, there was another reason I started NAC, and it also might reduce the symptoms and severity of the symptoms. This is guesswork, this is voodoo, this is snake oil. In conclusion, you should know infection prevention and control procedures for airborne and for contact viruses and bacteria. And I would throw in chemicals as well, because I'm a prepper. Don't get medical information from YouTube. Don't watch this video, order 1,000 capsules of NAC and start shoveling it down. Look at the references in the description if you want to start this stuff. Have a good think about it. If you can, chat to a doctor or a health professional. They may or may not understand what this is. They may or may not be able to help you get clarity. It's always worth asking. If you are going to try it, take 1 capsule and don't take any more for a week. Then take 1 capsule, then 1 capsule, don't take any more for the next 5 days. Build up over 3 to 4 weeks, taking 1 capsule a day. Don't take it unless you're at risk. Don't increase to 2 capsules a day unless you're at serious risk. Next time on Surviving Anything, I'm going to tell you how to survive RSV both now and in SHTF. Thanks for watching. Feel free to sub me and share this video and give me a thumbs up, and yeah, I'll make loads and loads of comments saying how brilliant I am, or I'll give you the lurgy. Toodles. This has been a 2020 Bad Terrier production.